Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Outledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action this week in Super League basketball. Let's start on Friday, Dave. Let's start with the drama at Mattioli Arena. Leicester Riders 95, Cheshire Phoenix 93. Menzies started really well in this game. EVA, Cart Carey hit threes. Leicester were up 16-11, but then Policelli came off the bench. He's hitting three after three, and Cheshire posts a 14-2 run to lead 18-25.
Yeah, um, yeah, weird game, up and down game.
Mm.
Cheshire's, as you say, Menzies started really well. Menzies was really impactful in this game. Um, they didn't, Cheshire weren't helping that much on the screen and roll, and he was able to roll into the lane. And then if he provided he can keep the ball high,
Mm.
he's a capable finisher with either his left hand or his right hand once he gets close to the rim. And so that kind of needed a bit of an adjustment from Cheshire. Um, then, as you say, Policelli chucking up threes from, what would be in most circumstances not great shots, but he's a guy who makes those shots, so they're good shots.
Mm.
And then it went back and forwards. And I thought, stylistically, it was a really interesting game because um, basically Leicester went toe to toe with Cheshire. They're a
Mm.
little, obviously they had the minutes with Menzies in where they're by definition a little bit slower. They're four out, one in. But basically, I think what you saw from Leicester was, and particularly from Carey and Battle in particular was, hey, you're going to come at us, and we're going to come at you, and so it was kind of haymakers all around.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things. I look down at the notes and I'm thinking, have I got these in the wrong order? Because I've got 4 points from Menzies and a battle three, so Leicester scored nine in a row to lead 51-40. And I'm thinking, well, have I put the third quarter in the wrong place? But there is still 5 minutes to go to half time on that. It really was, it was a points fest, particularly in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester have a lot of offensive power, particularly in that gym where they're shooting the ball really well at the moment. And yeah, 50, I noticed that 51 points in 15 minutes. And, and Cheshire sometimes need a little bit of a wake up
Mm,
defensively.
mm,
There are times where, they're just kind of riding it and you get the impression that Ben has to tell them, you need to start guarding.
mm,
Like for instance, even the Sheffield game the week before, it came not because they were scoring. The run came not because they were scoring, but because they were getting stops.
mm.
And so, 51 points on anybody's floor in 15 minutes isn't going to get the job done. And the 95-point rule remains undefeated.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there's a message there.
Well, they did have an 11-1 run to cut it to two, 54-52. Policelli again with 5 points. Half-time, Menzies was plus 12. He was the best in the game. Diggins and White minus 16 each. So both of them came off the bench in the second half. Points are a little harder to come by in the third quarter, but Leicester made a couple of threes to keep themselves 6 or 7 ahead and maintain that sort of advantage right to the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, you just can't keep Cheshire down, though, can you?
Mm,
They are going to scratch and claw and make shots and keep running and keep going. And if the minute you stop scoring, then they're scoring at the other end. Um, it really came down to the end of the game. There wasn't really that much in the game up until it came down up to the end.
Let's go
Um,
through the last few plays then. 2:12 to go. Battle with a pump fake. Defender flies by, he makes a three, 92-85, and you would think potentially done, but not against Cheshire. 1:53 to go. I thought Leicester defended the 3-point line pretty well, right into the point that Acott stepped off Cameron, and then he hit a three, 92-88. And then at the other end of the floor, great recovery by Rideau because Carey was open under the basket for a lay-in, but he forced the miss. And they were again, they started out well on the stopping the three in transition, and then lost Skylar White, 129 to go, 92-91.
yeah, I mean, the thing. Cheshire have guys who aren't, I wouldn't describe many of them as great shooters. The numbers don't indicate they're great shooters. Skylar obviously is a great shooter, even though because of the volume he puts up to
Mm,
shoot the percentage he does. But someone like Tobias Cameron is dangerous, not because he's a great shooter, but because he has the freedom to shoot.
mm,
These guys aren't restricted in relation to when they can put shots up. They're not going to be pulled out the game for shooting what isn't a good shot. So that makes them all dangerous because they're all shooting those shots confidently. So, Leicester would probably take Cameron shooting that shot. But as you mentioned on commentary, think of the genes.
Yeah, indeed. Timeout, no advance to the ball. Battle tried to force a pass over the top to Nduka. It nearly actually went into the basket. It was certainly closer to going in than it was to
Yeah.
reaching Nduka. A bit of chaos on the loose ball. It ended up a jump ball, and Cheshire got possession. And then 52.9 seconds to go. Rideau beats Evie, gets to the rim 92-93, and suddenly that 7 point lead of a minute ago is all gone.
Yeah, and the position before that, White had played great defense at the rim.
Mm,
I think he either changed the shot or partially blocked the shot, whatever, to get or some form of deflection. But I remember noting, he played great defense at the rim. We'll get to why that's important later. Um, but and then Rideau has this way of setting people up to late in the game.
mm,
Whereby and obviously all the Leicester defenders are really locked in on their man. So Rideau can set up on the right side of the floor, a little fake to the left, and he knows that once he just get his shoulders past it, it's a layup.
mm.
And the difficulty is there's nobody in the help side because Cheshire have got all those five shooters on, and you don't want to be the guy who leaves the shooter alone. So
No,
nobody can
no.
step into the help side, and particularly as they've just made two in the last minute and a half. So your immediate muscle. So this is where Rideau is really smart because he's not he's thinking they're playing me, they're overplaying on the perimeter, they're overplaying all those other guys. There's nobody in the help side. All I've got to do is throw a little fake and I'm at the rim. And he was at the rim, he made a layup. Um,
Um, so next play down, Carey to the basket. He was blocked by White. Leicester ball on the baseline. They inbound it. Carey on the high screen. Skylar maybe half a step off him
It
and
might be the
hit that.
possession I was talking about with
Yeah,
Skylar. Right? He
yeah.
makes, he makes a great play at the rim. Skylar Rose, right? He's more than half a
Mm,
step off. He's
mm,
probably a full step and a half off. The one thing that this is why scouting, even in this early season, even in the early part of the season, is really important. The one thing you know two things about Carey in 4 games. One, he's not afraid of the moment, right? In fact, he would probably prefer there were more moments.
yeah, yeah,
The amount of, he had 8 turnovers in this game. He had
yeah,
another
yeah.
six. He is not scared of trying to make plays. He's a high usage guy. But secondly, the play that he is most comfortable making is coming off that little left hand dribble
Mm,
and rising up and shooting a three from the top of the key. Starting on the right, he did it at Surrey a couple of times. He did it against London on Sunday. He did it against Newcastle in the first game. It's his comfort shot. And Rowe was absolutely spot on. White has to be up. Now, why wasn't White up? White wasn't up because the last play he'd made the block, he'd been at the rim, he'd
mm,
made the rim. So he's thinking that might be coming again. I can do that. He doesn't make the adjustment. Carey makes the adjustment, gets to where he wants and knocks the shot down. So it was a great shot. But again, it's his shot. It's a makeable comfort shot for Carey.
mm.
So little things make such a difference.
So Leicester up 31.4 seconds ago. Timeout, advanced the ball. Rideau to the rim through an absolutely outrageous pass to Brenchley. Pumps on the three. He's now open. Misses the shot. It rims out. Cameron bats the ball out to the halfway line. Rideau does really well. When I watched it back, I didn't pick it up as cleanly in real time, but he does a really good job of waiting for the ball to go into the backcourt because obviously on a tap it
Mm,
can't be a
that's
backcourt
right. Yeah.
violation, and then getting the ball rather
Yeah.
than your natural instinct would be to grab it at the
Take
halfway
it.
line. You'd step in, and it would be a backcourt. Really smart play, I thought that watching it back. And then
Rules,
about
don't know the rules.
hey, you got to know the
Know
rules.
the rules.
Exactly, you got
Yeah.
to know the
Take
rules.
advantage.
So there's about 16 and a half seconds left. In the scramble of Leicester chasing the ball to the halfway line, the defense was sort of all over the place. White is open. Two Leicester players then dive out at him because they're worried he's going to make the three. Again, a pump fake. They go flying past. He's open. His three was short, but this time it falls down to Rideau, who gets the ball, tosses it back up off the iron, and
Yeah.
eventually, having dodged three bullets, Johnson managed to get the rebound and is fouled with 6 seconds to go.
Yeah, and yeah, that's effectively it. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's basically right. They dodged three bullets.
Mm,
Um, it's tough because it's Cheshire, and the way that Cheshire play and the amount of threes they put up. But you really don't want to be giving up a 3 point shot when you're up two if you can
mm,
avoid. you
Mm.
know. But it's almost impossible to run. I mean, Brenchley maybe, and they ran at him, they tried to run him off. But if you're too far behind and you run at somebody, you just give them a chance to reset.
Mm.
You know, in reality, you don't want to be that far past them, that
Yeah.
far behind that you've got to run out all the way past them. Obviously, it's almost impossible to make White run inside the 3 point line. Um, and it's just, and, you know, games go on shooting variants,
Mm.
you know, and that's what that was. And ultimately, offensive rebounding for Cheshire helped them, but they got to make one more shot.
Got to make
I'm
one more
telling you now,
shot.
Dan, if that is
Uh,
in Ellsworth Court, they make the shot.
yeah, they probably
You know,
do.
this is
So
this is home and away, 95 points, all this stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Different.
So that should have been it, but it wasn't because
Yeah.
timeout advanced the ball. Leicester
Yeah.
possession in front of Cheshire's bench. Battle gets round the screen, but Johnson throws the pass ahead of him straight out of bounds. So
Mhm.
now it's a Cheshire ball, and obviously the clock doesn't tick because nobody touched it, so it's 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Timeout, they get to advance the ball. They inbound it in front of Leicester's bench. By the way, I know you can pick sides, but I really don't like teams inbounding it in front of the benches. There's something about that. I think
Yeah.
something about the opposite
Seems
side.
weird.
Lots of
I
people
agree.
do it, but anyway. Rideau gets the ball, creates a little bit of space, but unlike the Sheffield game, his three this time is short. And Policelli, again, another offensive rebound with a little tip, but couldn't quite get that to go on the buzzer.
Yeah, I mean, and this time Rideau legitimately created the space, but he didn't knock down the shot. It's in a different gym. I mean, that was a solid move. He didn't, he didn't commit an offensive foul in that one. Um, Yeah, ultimately, that's that phrase. You live by the three, you die by the three.
Yeah.
You make when you win, you don't, you lose. But you know, you look at the numbers in this game, and Cheshire's numbers weren't that great. Yet
Mm.
they still scored 93
Yeah,
points.
yeah, yeah,
Still had 3 shots to win the game, you know. And I think they
yeah,
shot 9 of 31 or something
yeah.
from the point line, you know. So there's a method in the kind of the 3 point madness. You know, we've talked about it before.
12 of
Both
39 it was from three.
12 or 39, both
Mm.
stylistically, 39, yeah,
Mm.
both stylistically and numerically. The other thing about this, which really kind of brought into play the disparity between the teams in the way that they play, is that, you know, Leicester had twice as many assists as Cheshire on the
Yeah,
same amount of field goals,
yeah,
effectively.
yeah.
You know, so Cheshire got 15 assists, Leicester got 30. Cheshire want to get you into an isolation game,
Mm.
you know, and basically, if you don't stop the isolation game, they're going to score on you. Leicester want to shift the ball and try and get that open. Look, two ways of playing the game. It's no way of saying that one is right and one is wrong. It's
Mm.
all suited to the personnel that you've got.
Well, if Carey's shot doesn't go in and one of the five shots that Cheshire had in the last 30 seconds does, it's a different
Yeah,
game,
absolutely. Yeah,
different
it's
outcome.
just it's that shooting variance. It
Yeah,
just, you know. But the home gym helps them. I
yeah.
think.
Battle, 9 of 12 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3 point range, 24 points and 6 rebounds. Carey, almost a triple double with 18 points, 10 assists, and 8 turnovers.
Ouch. Yeah.
Don't know if that counts. They had 21 turnovers in total, Leicester,
Yeah.
and they were 13 of 28 from three.
That's why I
Uh,
was saying stylistically, it was just a little bit unusual because Leicester basically went into Cheshire's game.
mm,
You know, they played faster. It's rare that Rob's teams have 21 turnovers in a game.
mm,
You know, that is pretty rare. It's rare what his one of his point guards has 8,
mm,
to be blunt. But that kind of also suited them because, you know, when you've got guys like Battle and Carey, and even some of the forwards, who are shooting the ball well, then you want them to get those shots. If you want to be playing fast, because that's how you're going to get those shots.
mm. Policelli, 4 of 9 threes for 19 points and 3 steals. Cameron, 15 points, 3 of 6 for 3 and 6 rebounds. White, also 3 of 6 for 3 for 13 points and 3 steals as well. Let's go to,
Sorry, one more thing, Dan,
yeah,
just on that. It's such a great sport, basketball, because you know Leicester are literally two missed 3 pointers away from being 1 and 6, and instead they're
yeah,
3 and 4.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know that's it. The Cheshire have made two or made one, and they've missed one.
yeah,
You know, so the records are almost a little bit at this point in the season somewhat skewed by that variance. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. Manchester basketball 87, Sheffield Sharks 75. James still out for Sheffield, and then a minute and a half into the game, you don't really see it on the screen, but Nixon twists his ankle. I assume he stepped on somebody's foot He was out for the rest of the game. We saw him on crutches later, and then he didn't play in the Sunday game.
Yeah, but he certainly got to improve on his dress game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, this apprentice, you're a man after my own heart, dressing like a geek. Proud of you. The glasses, the hat, everything.
Yeah.
Spot on. Not, this is not a fashion show. Please take with a
I'm not sure it's a
pinch of salt.
compliment for him, Dave.
No, no, but uh,
Before he went out, he had it a 3-pointer. Sheffield had
yeah,
got the first 6 points of the game, and they led for the whole of the first quarter, peaking at 12-22.
yeah. I thought as the game went on, it threw them off with Nixon not being there. Um, yeah, the issue with Sheffield that I see more than any other issue isn't their talent or isn't even their execution. It's I think at times they can be outworked. Off on the defensive rebounding in particular, but also up and down the court at times. Um, and I thought Manchester were too physical for them in this game. Yeah, and Sheffield got going and made some shots early. And Chapman remains one of the very top players in the league in relation to his ability to score and make plays when you need to. But I didn't think they really kind of worked for the physical battle in this game. I thought Manchester were really energised, and sometimes that can just do with being at home.
Mm.
It took almost Manchester's energy took them out of um, it kind of took them out of their execution early, but it kind of as the game went on, it wore on, and the shots started to drop.
So from 3 minutes to go in the first quarter to 2 minutes gone in the second, Manchester outscored Sheffield 18-3, including 14 unanswered points to lead 30 to 25. And then with Johnson and Henry hitting threes, they scored the last 10 points of the first half as well to lead 47-31 at half.
And of course, that period, the end of the first quarter, is impacted by Nixon's injury because that's when Sheffield's bench would normally be playing. But because Glasgow's had to come in earlier, suddenly they've got to find minutes at spots that they're not expecting to find minutes at.
Mm.
And the bench isn't being rotated in the same way, and they're already down James, as you say. Um, so that impacts that. Manchester you always feel a couple of shots away, particularly Jones. Jones is a mercurial player. He's strong, can get to the rim, can basically wants to shoot anything that's going if he's got the chance. And then they've got this kind of phalanx now of wings with Henry, another really solid British player in the league, came out of Germany Pro A. Adjacassi coming off the bench. Obviously Cleary coming off the bench as well. And you throw all of those guys in with a third guard in Johnson, who would probably start for quite a few teams in the league, then that becomes quite a potent second unit. But the biggest thing about ultimately this game is the reason all those guys got those shots was Osaboyan.
Mm.
I think we talked about him a couple of games
Yeah.
ago about his stats are quite weird. He's kind of almost as
Well,
many.
this game, 0 field goals and 9 assists.
Yeah, and that's what his
Zero
stats
zero attempts as well, not
all the
zero
time.
makes.
Now that basically means that Sheffield didn't play him properly. And actually,
Mm.
if you fast forward to Sunday's game, you'll find that Caledonia did. And what I mean by they didn't play him properly is you got to make him into a scorer. And what you can't do, because he's catching the basketball either on the roll, he's playing the centre spot, so he's either catching the basketball in the middle or catching it on the roll from setting the high screen and then distributing. And he's got a nice little thing going with Irving on the baseline cuts. Yeah. Or if he's catching the ball on the wing, he's penetrating to the middle, looking to pass. Or maybe a handoff here, maybe a throw to the corner, whatever. What you can't do in those situations is cheat off the guys who are in the corner and on the wing, assuming that Osaboyan is like any other player and is going to be looking to score because he isn't. And I didn't think Sheffield did a good job of that. I mean, somebody who has basically a centre who has 9 assists without putting a shot up, that means there are not that he's a good passer. Obviously, he's a good passer, but it means there are people open
Yeah,
for him
yeah,
to pass to. And I didn't think they reacted to that well at all. And I thought ultimately that was the game because he is a good passer and he gets the ball to the shooters in their pocket where they want it. In occasion, obviously, you'll get the ball in the baseline to Irvin or whoever as well. So I thought he was the difference maker in the game. And then just Manchester's, I thought, kind of physicality defensively wore Sheffield down. And the game went away.
Well, Chapman got it back with a couple of and ones. He scored nine in a 16-6 run, cut it to 60-57. But then Cleary, with nine in a row, pushed it back out to 71-57 early in the fourth quarter. And despite Manchester having foul trouble for their bigs, that was that. There was no comeback.
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield brought Lee in basically as kind of a backup big, and he's having to play bigger minutes now. Obviously, they brought James in to be their guy, and James hasn't played a game,
Hmm.
you know. So they lose kind of that extra scorer when Nixon isn't there. James becomes more important not being there as well.
Hmm.
Um, Glasgow's obviously not been in any sort of rhythm because he hasn't been playing many minutes at all. So he struggled a little bit in this game, and Dirk is a guy who's going to come off screens. But at times in this game, they had to have Dirk handling the basketball because Chapman may have been in foul trouble or getting a rest, and Nixon's not there. And that kind of takes Dirk away a little bit from what he does at
Hmm.
very best. They're still a potent offensive team, but they're not rebounding the ball well at the defensive glass, on the defensive glass. Kern is, I'm not sure. Kern's a gifted offensive player, but you've got a pretty fair idea of what he's going to do every time he catches the basketball, which is to attack the rim.
Hmm.
And that works if you're part of a second unit, whereby you've got a lot of kind of role players around you, and you become the guy for 5 or 6 minutes. Um, he's a little bit up and down for that Sheffield team at the moment in relation to what they're going to get out of him every game. It's a little bit like Carey, he's going to attack,
Hmm.
and that's fine. But he's a rookie, so some days he's going to attack and he might have 15 points in 12 minutes and win you the game. Other games, a couple of turnovers, a couple of not very happy looks at the ref, missed layup, whatever, and then you've got an issue. And I think that's more likely to happen for rookies on the road than it is at home.
Hmm.
So they need a full roster before you can judge them. They haven't had James, but they I thought they weren't either smart or physical in this game. They weren't smart in the way they defended the perimeter off Boy, and I didn't think they were physical enough defensively on the glass. That might be wrong. I need to check the numbers, but that was an impression as opposed to anything else.
Hmm. Cleary, 23 points, 7 of 10 field goals, 7 of 7 free throws. Johnson, 14. Irvin, 6 of 7 field goals, 12 points. We mentioned Boy, 9 assists. Chapman, 7 of 11 and 12 of 14 from the free throw line for 27 points. Deloach, 12 points. Lee, 10. They were 5 of 18 from 3.
How many
Uh,
points did they score total?
how many points did they score in total?
Yeah.
75.
So we had 27 out of 75.
Yeah,
That's 30,
a third.
30 some percent.
Mm,
It's a decent whack. They become very Chapman dependent
mm,
in those circumstances. So when he's not on the floor, you've got to find other ways of scoring the ball.
mm. Newcastle Eagles 83, Bristol Flyers 87. McCormack was out for Bristol. First SLB action of the season for Darius Defoe, although he was minus 11 in 3 minutes, so we'll skip
Yeah,
over that
good.
bit. And
It's better in the
Gus
European
Oak,
game, I think. Yeah.
yeah, Gus Okafor in for his debut as well. Eagles with the first 6 points, but Flyers then with a 23-6 run to lead 12-23, including a Delpesh three. And my stat on that was Marcus Delpesh went 248 games in BBL/SLB with no 3 pointers, and he's made 7 in his last 14 games.
Well, there you go. This is the game nowadays. Everybody needs to be able to shoot it if necessary. You know, I mean that was actually a broken play three as well, which makes it kind of even more of a stab to the heart of the Eagles because I think it was neither offensive rebound or a bubble ball or something like that, and he picked it up and shot it. And you can't criticize scouting reports or anything like that. You just have to live with it. A couple of things in this game. One, if you remember last week, Cam Holden, overtried against Cheshire.
Hmm.
Really, and they lost that game against Cheshire, and he could, it was because of all the things that were going on around that game,
Hmm.
obviously. But that then meant that I thought we got to really focus Cam Holden in this game, and that's a big difference with Cheshire because when he's
Bristol.
making his threes. Sorry, Bristol.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry. Yeah, when he's making his threes, the game becomes a lot easier for them.
Mm,
Because suddenly it's like, okay, how are we going to guard this guy? He's making threes. He can get his head down. If we cheat off the corners, he's going to throw a laser out of the corner for the shooters that we've got. And they've got some shooters with Yoakum and Anderson. Um, and also, at the end of the day, the scouting report on Cam Holden is still to let him shoot that shot.
mm,
That's still the worst of the lesser of all evils. So when he made a couple of those early, that was kind of here we go. This could be difficult because he's a guy once he gets invested in the game and once his juices are flowing, he's a triple double threat.
mm,
We know that we've seen it. Um, so Bristol kind of they were a little bit um, slow off the mark. I think you would say Newcastle got the ball to Camry inside a couple of times for finishes. Um, But Newcastle's half-court offense is still, to call it a work in progress, would probably be a bit generous. They're not generating a tremendous amount of good looks. They're not generating good threes out of their offense at the moment. And obviously they are a work in progress. They've got Hammond who's played 2 games. They got Okafor who's coming in, who looks like a pretty talented guy coming out of France Pro B, 10 a game. Who's playing his first game. He landed on Wednesday night from Argentina, so God knows what kind of flight that was, knowing
mm,
what kind of flights there are from nice big airports in America that get the SLB players get for cheapness. So God knows how he got from Argentina. Um, and then you've got Defoe's coming back in effectively for his first game with these guys because they're a whole new team.
mm,
So there's a lot of moving parts there still. And whilst they play hard and they continue to play and they've got some pretty serious talent on the wings. At the moment, they're not quite getting the best out of them.
mm.
It's a bit hard all at the moment. So the game kind of went back and forward. I couldn't believe it was a 5-point game at the half because it just felt like Bristol had controlled it.
Yeah, Eagles had it down to 4 early second quarter. Flyers a 9-0 response to 1932, and then Okafor got it down to 4 again before the Flyers pushed it to 10. That was kind of the back and forth, and then Jack and Anthony had the Eagles off to a 14-4 start to the third quarter and a 50-45 lead that they held until the end of the
Yeah,
quarter.
and this is what they've kind of got going on because he started at the second half, and I'm looking thinking where's the offense coming from
Mm,
because started with Clark and with Jack, and I think maybe Long, Anthony, and Canwy. It may have been Hammond, can't remember. But I was still thinking, Taylor's on the bench, Okafor's on the bench. I think Hammond might have been on the bench. You think what happened was they actually made an effort to get the ball into Anthony, and Anthony started cutting and playing aggressively. And Anthony's kind of an interesting player, having watched a number of games now with him, in that when he's connected offensively and cutting, and moving around the key, he has quite a nice game of just getting to his spots, rising up and making like 8 foot or 10 foot shots. When he's not, he's just out there.
mm,
I've seen a couple of games like that. He played the European game. He was over 2 in 23 minutes, hardly touched the ball. It wasn't a game they were winning,
mm,
So it's like you expect, you need to find a way of impacting the game. So um, they got on a run primarily because they were able to get the ball inside by running some plays for him. Clark is clearly Stu will trust Clark a little bit more on running plays, which is why he's starting the game. And that kind of got Newcastle into a rhythm.
mm. It was 70-68 with 6 minutes to play, and then Eagles only scored once in the next 5 minutes as Joe Anderson netted 7 in a 14-2 run to
Yeah,
make it 72-80 with less than a minute to play.
yeah, I thought at this point, firstly, Newcastle should have known what's going on with Joe Anderson because he did exactly the same to them in the pre-season game
Mm,
only 6 weeks ago. But basically, it's still Eagles trying to figure out who needs to be on the court at the end and where the ball's got to go. And it didn't go where it needed to go. So at about 5 minutes to go, Anderson basically, I think, scored on Taylor a couple of times in a row, shot his little step back. And Mark took Taylor out and then put Clark in the game, um, most likely for defense and to try to get the ball where it's meant to be. But that takes away from it takes a major scoring threat out of the equation because obviously Taylor dropped 32 on London.
mm,
So he's probably somebody you would want in the game. And then Eagles with this, as I say, this phalanx of wing talent with Hammond and Jack and um, Okafor or Cole Long or whoever, all guys who can play on the wing, they couldn't get the ball to those guys, and you end up with 8, 10 seconds on a shot clock, and you've got Mitch Clark having to make a play, and that's not what that's not the way it needs to be. It's not the
Mm,
way that you're going to get solid. Mitch Clark can play, but he's not the guy who's going to be create. He's not in the team to create offense off the dribble on his own. He's not Don Carey. He's not going to be,
mm.
constantly going, constantly attacking. He's going to be probing, and their kind of offense just died a death. They couldn't find a place to go. And Joe Anderson, ultimately, Anderson and Brown were better than Taylor and Clark in this game. That for me, that was the game because the wings, Joachim weren't great. Anderson really never got going for Bristol. And Holden, as I said, was solid, but Holden's kind of a guard. And for Newcastle, Jack and Okafor and eventually Hammond got going and got scored and we were able to score the ball. But Newcastle couldn't get the ball to the guys where they needed them, and they couldn't get any open threes to guys who can really shoot. I think Hammond can really shoot, and I think Jack can really shoot. We know Jack can really shoot, and they really couldn't get into the middle of the paint and kick the ball out for open threes. They don't get many threes off paint touches. That's something they've really got to improve on.
And that basically was it, except Bristol attempted to let
Deliberately.
Newcastle back into the game by letting Okafor tip in his own missed free throw. I tried to see whether it was a line violation. I don't think it was. And then they passed Cole Long the ball for a three with 5.2 seconds to go to make it 83
Yeah, I mean
85.
that. To be fair, I'm sure Andreas was thinking, "There's no way we can screw this."
Yeah,
But really, thinking back, he would have took that. He would have took the time out after the tipping
yeah, 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 yeah,
because he had a timeout left. It's
yeah,
5 seconds to go. You're up five. You think get the ball in bounds. He
yeah,
takes the timeout, then the game is over.
yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't. And then, as you say, they threw the ball to Cole Long. Cole Long knocks a three. It's a 2 point game, and everybody turns around and says, "Hang on, what's going on here?" Then
Brown
Brown
made two free throws and that
knocks two
was
foul
it.
shots
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
And as I say, I thought I was really impressed with Brown.
Mm,
Really impressed. I think he's at a pretty good level, SLB level now. I think
mm,
he's got room to grow because he's got the athleticism, he's got the shooting. His decision making will come. I think the more he plays, he's not tremendous, hasn't got tremendous size, but as a British guard, he really does give you kind of Watson Gale vibes without kind of the feeling that he needs to shoot the ball every second time down the court,
mm,
you know? So I thought those two were the different, and Anderson is just a guy who is under control. He has, what his move, he wants to shoot. He made in the middle of that run, he made about a 30-footer to seal
mm,
the game. What should have sealed the game?
yeah,
And you know that basically if he's open at the end of the game, he's going to shoot it. He's
yeah.
got the little kind of step back onto his left hand to shoot the three, a little bit like Carey again, to getting the ball to his left hand to shoot it. Um, but he's not just that; he's got a few little counters as well. So a couple of times he was able to fake and then kind of get to the elbow and shoot if it knocked down a 15-footer. And he's a very difficult guy to kind of force to go all the way to the rim because he's too smart to do that. He doesn't want to go all the way at the rim unless there's
Yeah, yeah,
literally nobody.
yeah.
So he's very, very good at manipulating the defense. And ultimately, I thought that, and the fact that as I say, there's less moving parts with Bristol now. They've all kind of got their roles. Newcastle aren't close to that. There's still this kind of thing with Clark and Taylor as to who's going to start and who's going to come off the bench. What's Taylor's role? Is he going to be a scorer? Is he going to be a setup guy? Is he going to be a bit of both? Because he came in 4 minutes. He played the whole first half. So they kind of need him on the court quite a lot. Do they have enough at the guard spot? Do they need another guard? I mean, there's a lot for them to kind of figure out at the moment. They lost six in a row. I haven't even got them on spiral watch because I don't see the signs of spiraling because I
Mm,
see them playing hard. I see them lots of pieces kind of trying to fit together. But at some point in time, you got to win games.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's right. And they're not going to be helped by going to play some Greek superstar team on
No,
Wednesday.
no.
But albeit they get a bit of sunshine, so Eric will
Mm,
be happy.
mm.
Um,
As long
you
as
know,
Eric's happy.
as long as Eric's happy, that's right. I'm sure he's got the bars lined up as we speak. Um, but yeah, I mean, so it left me the game as a as an ardent home supporter, left me kind of a bit conflicted. I was disappointed, but I was kind of understanding that they're not where they need to be yet.
Mm.
And I think they get the talent level is getting there. The talent level is possibly with Okafor is getting there. Um, but then again, they're not competing to win the league. You know, this is a problem. Nobody's really competing to win this
No,
league.
no.
You're competing to be ready in big games to see if you can win a cup,
Yeah.
you know, or do something in the playoffs. So to do that, you might have to take the lumps now in improving your talent level, you know, to see if you can get there later on. So I was a little bit conflicted by that. There's also an interest, and I looked at the rules as well, which is because brought about by Eagles press release, which said that nobody's been released from the squad.
Okay.
I didn't know that. And obviously Malcolm Smith didn't play in this game. He
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
Um, but it appears that there's a rule which, because the rules are quite new this year, so it's quite interesting
Yeah.
going through some of the things that have been changed sneakily over the summer. Um, Obviously, there's this salary cap rule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you've got 800,000, you have four imports.
Yeah.
Budget of 400,000, you have five imports. Under
I think it's
400,000,
500,000, isn't it?
is it 500,000? Whatever.
Yeah.
You can have five imports and whether you have six imports. But what the rule also allows is for teams to have extra imports signed on, right? So, but what the rule seems to suggest is, right, that because there are two separate rules which slightly conflict, I haven't got the numbers, but I looked them up.
Mm.
That if you've got, for instance, what London are doing at the moment,
Yeah.
right? If you have only four imports or five imports, you can register a sixth import
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and clear them.
Yeah.
However, if you have six imports, the suggestion is you can't, there's a different rule which says you can't have more than that registered,
Yeah.
which leads us to a slightly, now I'm guessing that Smith's been is in this country long enough that Newcastle are keeping him because they're expecting him to become British quite soon. So I don't imagine that kicks into it. Okay.
Okay.
But what it leaves us in is a situation whereby a rule that's been brought in to try to um, impact the higher budget teams, right, is actually helping them in the way it's interpreted because it's allowing them to have more imports than can play, but it's not allowing anybody else to have more imports than can
Yeah, but
play.
it's that's you could look at it as you could look at it that way, or you could look at it the way that is everybody can have six imports, and the higher the budget, the fewer you can play on any given night, rather than thinking
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
as
I agree with
four
that. I agree with
two
that.
bonus ones.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong. I'm just
Mm.
saying it was interesting reading the rules.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have
yeah,
a issue with it. I'm not saying that teams should be able to have seven, eight, nine imports, and that's why I make the point about Smith. But it does seem to me to be a little bit of it kind of creates not an advantage, but it kind of creates a soft landing pad for the team that's got a lot of
yeah,
money,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, which isn't, I would have thought, the purpose of the rule. Because what we've seen already is London are rotating their imports. Obviously, they've got Randall, but they played Lithuanian guy on Sunday, and they didn't play
But
Williams.
what would have been interesting is, had they been fully healthy, what would they have done? Because obviously, they had I've forgotten the guy's name now who hasn't played a game, who they brought in the Lithuanian
Excellent.
for. Yeah, he's obviously never
Excellent.
played, and then Reynolds got injured a few weeks ago in the European game, which is why Randall has come in. So I don't know that I've gauged what it is they're trying to do because the injuries have sort of muddied the water.
Yeah, oh, that's possible. That's possibly right.
Mm.
What I'm just trying to do for everybody's benefit is to kind of lay out what the rules are
Yeah, yeah. There is a
in
strategic
relation to
advantage to
the new
not
rule.
to not allow it to not the other team not knowing if they've got all their players fit and healthy, the other team not knowing who's going to
Yeah,
play, and you can obviously
who's
change. But
playing? Yeah,
there's the strategic disadvantage of not being able to play two players.
but that's baked into the rule because
Yeah, yeah,
you're paying a lot more money for the
yeah, yeah,
players on the team.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so yeah. I
It
mean,
gives
I'll be
but
interested to
it
see
also then
what
gives them an opportunity to have a team capable of winning games at Eurocup level
being
without
that's you.
killing
Yeah,
the entire competition.
yeah, it does. So there's checks and balances.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
And it's precipitated by this comment that Newcastle made about Malcolm Smith not being released. So I looked
Mm.
it up,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, because yeah, that London were doing something different. So yeah, so there we go. So let's keep an eye.
Jack 20 points, 4 steals. Okafor 16 points, 5 of 7 shooting. Anthony 13.6 rebounds. They were 5 of 20 from 3 point range.
Yeah, it's not going to
Holden,
get the job done at home.
no. Holden 6 of 8 shooting, 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Joe Anderson 7 of 11 shooting for 17 points. Joachim and Delpesh had 13 points. Delpesh also had 10 rebounds as well. Let's come to Sunday. Start in Sheffield. Sheffield Sharks 76, Bristol Flyers 69. As said earlier, Nixon didn't play in this game. First real run of the game came at the end of the first quarter when Bristol scored 7 in a row to lead 17-4. 17 to 24 even.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, Bristol are a pretty cohesive unit. Sheffield obviously dealing with without Nixon, that's a lot of usage goes, a lot of shots, a lot of ball handling goes. But it also gives other people opportunities. In particular, Glasgow, he gets an opportunity now because he's been playing fit in minutes basically, but now suddenly he's starting. And of course, Bristol haven't seen much of Glasgow because he hasn't played much. So he's kind of one guy who's they're probably not really going to be on the scouting report for. Um, the game itself, you never felt that either team had a degree of dominance to it. Um, and obviously, I was watching it afterwards. I had a couple of texts about things that had happened and tried to avoid them.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out. And so much of the game I was watching, I was kind of watching it, waiting for it to get to the end, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. So I
I
was
will say is, I
obviously
mean, it was,
I was watching these in real time. So I was three screening and
yeah,
then pausing bits to go back and
yeah.
whatever. Let's skip through the froth and get to the meat, shall we?
Well, just
Um,
on that though, I mean,
yeah,
what I will say, there was a couple of unsportsmanlike fouls I really didn't agree with.
yeah, yeah.
And there was one on holding at half court, which could have got very important later on.
Mm,
Where I thought he was clearly in front as opposed to behind or to the side where you've got to be. So it wasn't a last man unsportsmanlike foul. And I certainly didn't think there was enough for a kind of non-play on the ball kind of
mm,
unsportsmanlike foul. And then there was one on Deloach at the end, which also just seemed to be him challenging a layup.
mm.
There's also a pretty egregious missed goaltend, I think.
Yeah, the Deloach
If
one to
this was
me
that.
was you're in the shooting motion, so it's a different rule at
Yeah.
that point. But yeah,
Well, if you're saying that, unless you're saying, it was excessive force,
yeah,
it wasn't.
it wasn't.
I mean,
Yeah,
I assumed it was an excessive force in sportsmanlike. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, foul.
Mm,
Didn't come on the elbow or anything like that. I might be wrong about I think the goaltend was actually in the London Leicester game, so I'll forget about that.
mm,
But yeah, so I thought it was a bubbly game, this one. It
mm,
was bubbling up a little bit.
mm,
And we do have, we're getting into the part of the season now whereby we've got a fair idea who the instigators are,
mm,
who are the people most likely to get kind of a little bit wound up and who like to talk. And players talk, the players network group chat, goes
mm,
around. And so, when you get Chapman's in that category now.
mm,
Holden's always been in that category. Obviously, Rideau's perpetually in that category. In fact, he would be the founder member and would probably be disgusted if he was kept out of it.
mm.
Um, and
We've lost
a
Duke.
couple of
Duke would be in that category as well.
Duke would be in there. Obviously, we've lost Duke. Duke Shelton would be in there. And there's a couple of others, and there's just on a kind of a bigger picture thing here, and we'll get to it before we finish off with the game because it was still a good game, and
Mm,
it was all, it was a good game. It was well played and competitive. But on a bigger picture thing here, I think we are missing. I see a diminution in the level of control of the players in relation to the officiating
mm,
across the league, across the games. And what I mean by that is, it's just the petty stuff. It's the throwing the ball away. It's the stares. It's the having a laugh on the bench. It's Josh Ward Hibbert 3 weeks ago at Newcastle walking across the court on a timeout to speak to the refs when he was on the bench without
Mm.
in street clothes.
Yeah, yeah,
It's Prentice Nixon doing exactly the same thing
yeah,
in this
yeah,
game,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I'm looking, thinking, it's. I mean, the ref in this one of the refs in this Sheffield game was having a laugh on with the crowd at one point when the ball went. I think the ball hit somebody in the crowd, and you see it on the camera, and it's just like that stuff gets through to players that you can get away with stuff
Mm.
that you can be. You are not not there if you're to be a ref to be popular. In fact, you're probably a good ref if you're unpopular. I said a little bit about this last,
Mm.
right? And it's not you're not part of the show. You're not part of the entertainment. And I think um, that, and obviously, there's a lot of this is exacerbated by Cheshire last week. So that kind
Mm.
of brings it into kind of the full-on circus mode. Um, but I think it's I think that these players are talking to each. These players know. These players see things, and they know what and so the little chicken wings and the little pushes and all that stuff, and the set. I think the refs that we have and whatever they need to toughen up. They need to start being less concerned about the way they are perceived and more concerned about keeping the game under control.
Mm.
You know, if the Ward Hibbert thing wasn't quite as egregious as the Nixon thing because on the Nixon thing, they're actually on the baseline on the other side of the court.
Mm.
If I'm a referee and he comes across there dressed like that when he's sat on the bench,
Mm.
so he's a team follower. Now, I don't know if there's a rule against it, that maybe there isn't, but I'm telling him where to go very quickly.
Mm.
And I'm making it very clear to the coach that if I can't call a technical on him, I will be calling a technical if I see anything like that happen again.
Mm.
Because I just think it adds to a level of kind of influence. And Prentice Nixon's doing what he can for his teams. I'm not, if he can get away with it, Josh Hibbert did it. If the word has gone out that, oh, you can do this,
Mm.
then it's on his.
I think if they're stood
Then
on the
it's
sideline there, then that's a different thing. But to be allowed to come across the court like that, yeah, I agree.
Well, what I'm saying is, it sets up every little bit, and it's like Chapman throwing the ball, or 2 times at the ref at Cheshire, or the 2 times now we've seen in 4 weeks players put their hands on referees.
Mm.
That was Tariq Phillip at Newcastle, Skylar White at Cheshire, without any meaningful sanction. Phillip got technical, White didn't get anything. Even Brett Nixon put his hand on the ref in that type of stuff, would never have been available never been acceptable. Even certainly when I was around,
Mm.
you don't come anywhere, you don't get into a rest personal space at all. So I just think they need to lay down the law a little bit about this because otherwise we are going to get to the point whereby the instigators are emboldened by
Mm.
what's going on, and you end up with lots of talking, and you end up with what you ended up in this game.
So let's run through the game quickly. Chapman and Williams with threes to level it back up at 32. It remained
Yeah.
close in the first half. Sheffield then scored 8 without reply to lead 54-47. Bristol responded with the next 12 points to lead 54-59 early third quarter. So let's get to the incident
Early
near the
fourth
end.
quarter.
Fourth quarter, yeah.
Yeah, early fourth quarter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get to the incident near the end. 2:18 to go. Bristol had possession of the ball. The ball then comes loose. There's a bit of a mad scramble for it. Deloach and Delpesh end up prone on the floor. Chapman and Holden are above Deloach fighting for the ball. A jump ball is called. Chapman then picks Holden up off the ground. I'm not quite sure why. And then as he puts him back down, because of the way he's picked him up, Holden has his arm around his head, so ends up with him then headlocking Chapman. He gets his head out from underneath. There's a bit of the sort of grabbing and pushing, holding sort of stare downs and all of that. Everybody then comes running in. It's at the baseline at the end of the court where Sheffield's bench is closest to it. So James, West, Kern, who was on the bench as a sub, all come running in as well. And instantly I'm going, DQ, DQ, DQ,
Yeah.
as you see them come running out. For people who don't
How
know,
was that, James, isn't it?
hey, yeah, well, I'm going to
Was
get to
that the
that in a
James?
minute. I'm going to get to
Yeah.
that in a minute. So the rule is that in a situation that is a fight or could be a fight. Only Atiba and Marco, as the first assistant coach, are allowed to leave the bench area, and they're only allowed to leave the bench area if they are restoring order or assisting the referees to do so. Anybody else who leaves the bench area is automatically DQ'd. So those three came out. It was a good spot. Referees kept their
I
eyes
only
on
did
them.
that once, and I can't remember the game, but it was great. You got such a rush run on the court.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
Were you
one.
restoring or maintaining order, Dave?
I was restoring order. Oh,
Yeah,
you're joking. Like me instigating, you're joking. The lawyer is there to sort things out, not to
yeah.
make it worse. That was, but and there was one right at the end of the famous Leicester Newcastle game where Rob and Drew Lasker got into it, and
Mm,
Drew Sullivan was there, and there was a bit of a melee right at the end of that as
yeah,
well. But it's great getting on it's great because it's like, okay, you can be whatever.
yeah.
You've got to make sure you grab the right guy. I mean, I could never grab Flanoy because he would have chinned us. If he wanted to hit somebody, he'd have done it without me. That's the thing I'm going to do. So you've got to grab a guy who really isn't going to get involved anyway. But it makes you look, anyway, moving on. Yeah, go on.
So the DQs are meted out, and by
Yeah.
rules, what you get there is a single bench technical and 2 free throws for it, irrespective of the amount of people disqualified. So I thought they got that bit spot on. I thought the whole disqualification bit, the punishment for it, perfect.
We've got to
But
be fair. There's no replays. There's no
yeah,
replays now.
there's no
Let's be fair. There are
replays.
no
Yeah,
replays.
they've got to see that in real time, and they did.
We
So
can
so
reach it. They can't.
so
Give them
fair
credit.
enough.
Yeah.
But a little like the Chapman Shelton incident earlier this season, I don't know how the two protagonists get no punishment at all. I think you have to call something for the initial instance. It cannot just be
I
the
mean, it's a double
disqualification for
tech.
the bench
I mean,
people.
you know how much I hate double techs, but it's a
Mm,
double tech.
yeah.
I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough. I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't a foul. I mean, the jump ball thing. I mean, Holden had the ball in his hands when the whistle blew. So
Mm,
how Holden got kind of double foul from my perspective. So I thought that should have been a personal foul. But if the refs blowing the premature jump ball, I suppose you have to live with it. It does
mm,
happen, and you can't criticize for trying to control that. But at that point, the fact, even if they get hung up together, that's fine. You separate, you're all right. But when they get hung up together and they don't separate, and it's quite clear that neither of them is willing to separate because they're talking to each other,
mm,
right? At that point, that becomes a double take. Now, if anybody has a swing or makes a move with their head or anything like that, then that's disqualification. And yeah, okay, I hate double text, but I hate double text because they normally don't catch the instigator out.
mm,
Okay, I'm still not sure who the instigator was in this one,
mm,
right? I know Chapman kind of grabbed him first, but I'm not sure that I just don't know that was necessarily an overtly hostile act to disqualify Holden from getting a technical for what he did afterwards, which was basically to talk and to do all that. But
mm,
the relevance of all of it is that it has to be, as you say, it absolutely has to be something.
mm,
Now, at this point, of course, Chapman's on 4 fouls,
mm,
right? Chapman should have been gone from that game, no
mm,
question, right? Holden is on unsportsmanlike foul.
mm,
Holden should have been gone from that game.
mm,
In my mind, both of them. Holden I don't know how many fouls Holden had, but on the unsportsmanlike technical, Chapman on his 5th foul. That should have been the end of it. But those two guys go, kick out the guys and get on with the game.
mm,
As I say, Bristol a little bit unlucky not to get the foul, but it doesn't really matter because they weren't in the penalty and they get 2 shots in the ball anyway for the disqualification.
mm,
So that didn't really impact the game. But what did impact the game was that Chapman was still in it.
mm, mm. And most egregious of all, David, you've got to it already. Is we now have not one but two players who have a foul, but no games played. And of course, fouls per game average, Dave, is fouls
Oh shit!
divided by
Infinity.
games,
We've got
and
infinity.
one divides zero, Dave.
We've got infinity.
We've
But,
got
but
we've got worse than that. We've got an error in Excel.
an
Excel
error
won't
in
do it.
Excel.
It won't do it. It cannot
It
cope
does
with
not
somebody.
compute.
So if to set the world straight, the punishment should be, in my view, that both
Yeah.
those players have to start the next game in their civvies for the jump ball and play until the ball goes out of bounds. Then they can be subbed out, so they get a game played, and suddenly the world will be right again, where We don't have a div 0 error in Excel.
You see, and I've just said that off the top of my head, but I've just whilst I'm on it, I've just had a quick look into the my AI overview on Google,
Mm,
and it does talk about that the idea that one divided by zero equals infinity
mm,
comes from the concept of limits in calculus, not from standard arithmetic. So
mm,
if there are any mathematicians watching this, there's a
mm,
basis for that that assertion that I just made, which was something of a guess,
mm,
in maths. So don't come back to this. I'm not
mm,
interested.
mm,
And this is why obviously it was so important that Prentice was dressed the way he was
mm,
as a
mm.
geek.
Yeah. Div 0.
Um,
We need some punishment for getting
yeah,
that
well, that's
together.
right. I suppose they're probably going to be suspended from being injured, aren't they?
Well, maybe, maybe,
I
yeah.
mean, you have to ultimately. There has to. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of people getting less than one game suspensions for disqualifications.
Mm,
The whole 9 penalty points when 10 is a disqualification
yeah,
just seems
yeah.
to me arbitrary and nonsense. So I assume that everyone's going to get a game, or the guys that came off the bench are going to get a game, because otherwise you're pour encourage les autres, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah,
People can come off the bench and think, oh, well, we're not going to even miss a game for it. That's hardly the way of sending a message. I
yeah.
mean, having said that, it always seemed to me a little bit unfair. I mean, there was a famous game at Newcastle Arena 23 years ago between the Eagles and the what was probably the Edinburgh Rocks then,
Mm,
where uh, Chris Webber, not the Chris Webber, the white Canadian Chris Webber used to ride around on bikes around the arena.
mm,
He was playing for one of the two teams, and he got I think he was playing for the Rocks, and he got into a fight with Steve Ogan Jimmy,
mm.
and which neither of them were major players for their team.
No,
But unfortunately, TJ Walker stepped like 3 feet onto the court,
yeah,
and TJ got disqualified, and we
yeah,
weren't
yeah, yeah, yeah,
out it.
yeah.
It was a good scrap though. So TJ was literally that. So ever since then, but you understand why the rule is there. The rule is there to prevent.
The example I always remember was from Bracknell Leisure Centre, circa early 90s, I suspect, possibly even late 80s.
That wasn't the Thames. That wasn't the John Lake place, was it?
No, no, no,
No,
no,
that
it
wasn't
wasn't.
the Bracknell, the Thames TV, the later TV venue.
No, they only ever played in the one place. But there was another John Nike thing that wasn't the Bracknell Leisure Centre, but
I've been
the
to
old Thames
Bracknell.
Valley venue.
Yeah,
You
the
will
old
have
Thames
been
Valley
to.
venue. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I've been there. We got back to the
So
wedding. We half
so
past
they
nine.
were
It was at half past.
playing a semi-final first leg, I think it was. It was definitely a first leg. I'm pretty sure it was a semi-final against Leicester, and there was some sort of incident happened on court. Can't even remember who was involved or what it was. But obviously, in a venue like that, it's quite easy to lob onto the court. You haven't got to jump over an LED board or anything like that. You're basically on the court.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
the two benches got up and ran on, and Michael Hales, the erstwhile captain of the Tigers,
And not a
basically,
man not a man, probably a man that wouldn't be shy of looking after his team.
yeah,
Michael Eales was a
but
solid unit.
this was how he looked after his team. He grabbed all the Thames Valley players, pushed them back onto the bench, and then shouted at the ref, "They're all off the bench," and about five Leicester players got disqualified. And the Thames Valley players had come on as far, but he'd pulled them all back before pointing
Back in
out to the
time.
referee that they were. And then, of course, they were all suspended, I think, for the second leg as well. So it was a
Nice,
double
smart.
whammy.
Hey, know the rules.
Mm.
Know the rules. We had a little Bristol Plymouth melee in the dark, didn't we, a couple of
Yeah,
years ago
yeah,
as well,
yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
We couldn't figure out in the cameras who it was. Yeah. There's no a bench clearer is. I mean, don't get me hypocritical. Yeah, the
Mm.
bench clearer is generally good fun
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
a lot of pontificating and procrastinating and
mm.
pointing and kind of looking hard, and very little generally happens, and not
Yeah,
much happens in this in reality.
yeah.
Um,
And
so yeah,
invariably the misfortune is the team whose end it happens at. Because when you've got to come
yes,
all the way
yes,
down the other court, you've got to go past the assistant coach who knows the rule and stops
yeah.
you. Whereas when you're sat on the end of the bench and it's on the baseline, there's nobody to stop you, and you're the ones
So,
all going to get. If that had been the other end of the floor, I should imagine there were three different players that would have been ejected
yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
as a result of it. And of course, that gets the ire of the home fans up who feel aggrieved. But them's the rules. Stay sat down, and
Them's
you
the
won't
rules.
get
Yeah. Well, I
disqualified.
mean, Sheffield ultimately did well out of it because the next play down, Chapman comes back down and makes the three, which probably turns the game, and he shouldn't have been on the court.
Mm. So
You know,
you've jumped one play ahead. First of all, there was some free
mm,
throws which were made. Brown made the I think it was Brown made the free throws 6-7-67. Anderson then missed, and then Delpesh was blocked on the rebound, so they ended up with a shot clock violation with 2:02 to go. And then the play you were just talking about, 1:38 to go. Chapman ran the screen, hits a three, 70-67. Other way down, Rotino loses his feet. Anderson hits a mid-ranger, cuts it to one, and then 57.2. They were a big step off Rotino. He nets a three, 73, 68, and that was pretty much that.
yeah, I think Bristol's energy was a little bit down on where it was on Friday night. I think probably obviously it's a long weekend. I assume that they travel to Sheffield afterwards. And ultimately they're in the early 70s instead of the mid 80s,
Mm,
which is probably what's cost them the game. I thought Rod Glasgow was really good in this game. He had 15 points. He didn't really guard him for the jump shot like you need to, and he kept Sheffield close. And yeah, and Chapman. I think Chapman might have made the play for Retino as well. And
mm,
Chapman's just a really talented guy. I just think they need to keep his head up, keep his head straight, because if Nixon's out for a period of egos, and he's got that kind of. I'm seeing little signs of a second year American who thinks I'm a bit good for this. And he is a bit good for this, to be blunt. He's
mm,
probably one of the best players in the league. So he has to lock in the way that Nixon did last year when he carried Sheffield to the cup, and kind of take that responsibility on his shoulders. And with that responsibility comes the responsibility not to foul people, the responsibility not to be the agitator, the responsibility to stay in games because you're the guy that you needed. And I'm not quite sure um, if he's got that in him. That's his test now. He needs to calm it down
mm.
and run his team, and that will help his team.
So I forgot to write down the score, so I've been manically opening the live stats to have a look now. Chapman, 5 of 8 shooting, 3 of 6 3 for 18 points. Williams, 16 points and 8 rebounds, 4 assists as well. And Glasgow, 5 of 8 shooting for 14 points. And then
32
Bristol.
points on 16 shots from the two starting guards.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, guards make a difference in this league. If your guards play well, you're likely to win.
Joachim, 16 points and 7 rebounds. Brody, 12 points and 10 rebounds. And Holden, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists.
In this game, basically, you've just seen there Glasgow and Chapman outperformed Anderson and Brown.
Mhm.
It was the opposite to Friday night.
Let's go to East Kilbride. Caledonia Gladiators 74, Manchester Basketball 62. A game of runs to start with. 6-0 Caledonia, 17-4 Manchester, 8-0 Caledonia, 5-0 Manchester, and it's 2022 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, watching this back, I was just really. If you told me that Caledonia could hold anybody to 62 points,
Mm,
I would have told you that you were mad.
mm,
Right? Sorry, Caledonia, that's just what I've seen so far. If you told me that they could have held Manchester at 62 points, right, I
mm,
would be booking your bed in the asylum now.
mm, mm,
It's like just Manchester have all of this offensive talent, athleticism, shot making, pace of play. In Caledonia, really haven't shown the Caledonia we know can score, but they really haven't shown the defensive chops to kind of impact on that.
mm. And worse to
Watching this,
that, as I just said, they had 22 at the end of the first quarter, so they had 40 in 3 quarters.
yeah, and watching it back, um, it was really a tricky one to kind of work out how much I'm attributing this to Caledonia and how much you're disattributing it to Manchester as well. How much is it Caledonia doing the right things? How much is it Manchester just being incredibly flat? I probably put it about 70-30 the Manchester side, I'll
Mm,
be honest. Um, just Manchester's three American guards went 8 of 35 combined in this
mm,
game.
mm,
Now, I wouldn't have thought that was feasible. They haven't, Caledonia really don't. That's Johnson, Smith, and Jones. Um, Caledonia really don't have any defensive stoppers. Kind of Jimenez gets into it. On a good day, maybe Holland is pesky. But and Wright and Ragsdale are they're there, but they're not really perimeter stoppers to kind of force you into that. What I thought Caledonia did really well was that they stayed on the shooters from Ossaboyan. They
mm,
made Ossaboyan into a scorer. And if you think about it, and I know we can go through the game in a little bit, but basically Caledonia stepped into it and Caledonia just kind of went away. Max Jones really got very frustrated with himself, and there was kind of a bit of rookie was going on there because you think he was getting, it was a game they played well on Friday night. They got a trip up to East Kilbride, and they just weren't ready for that game.
mm,
Um, but Caledonia didn't give them that many open shots to go with. They moved the ball probably better than they have most of the season. They certainly were nowhere near as Kevin Allen centric as they have been.
mm,
And Manchester clearly hadn't understood that Matthew Ragsdale likes to shoot
mm. Yeah, yeah,
because he got 14 three-point shots up in
yeah,
25 minutes.
yeah,
And he's
yeah.
probably the best shooter in the league.
Mm,
And you give up 14 threes to him in 25 minutes. So that's where I come from with Manchester's kind of just ineffectiveness, just their lethargy. I thought, as I say, there didn't seem to be outside Ossaboyan. I give Ossaboyan a ton of credit. Thought he played hard the whole game. Thought he was there the whole game. Thought Cleary tried to get something going near the end. I think Henry might have gone out with a knock, but outside and Irving was injured from the beginning, from about 6 minutes in. So Irving not being there is a big issue
mm.
for them because he's a stabilizer.
So
But that's all the minutes.
he left in the second quarter. It was one of those weird ones where I was trying to see how hurt was he, and the play beforehand he seemed to tweak an ankle a little bit, and then he raced off down court, and then as I say, once he went out, he never came back in the second quarter. By which point they were already
Yeah,
down
and
10 because Ragsdale and Spielman had hit threes and put Caledonia in front.
yeah, I mean, Irving, and to be fair, so that's the mitigation. They do have some
Mm,
mitigation. But I mean, not to that degree. Um, I thought Jones got into his own head big time. um, Started forcing stuff. As I say, that's a worry when you're dealing with rookies, because with rookies, you're wanting to see what degree of poise they have when things aren't going their way. And I'm sure the coach will be showing them the video back
mm,
because you kind of have to be able, even when you're not making plays or when things aren't going your way, you have to have your head straight ahead to turn it around. And then he went down in the third quarter,
mm.
and you thought he was out for
That
the
looked really
season, and
bad,
suddenly he's
didn't it?
back
I was
playing.
surprised to see him come back in after that.
Well, it was. What I will say is, I thought it was an entirely inappropriate decision to stop the game.
Mm,
Caledonia had the ball um, and had a 5-on-4. He didn't have a head injury. I don't think the referee should be stopping the game at half court. We had one in the first half where Johnny was rightly infuriated by the fact that a technical foul is called literally
just
2 seconds
below.
before they're ready to make an open layup. So basically a player getting a technical foul defense, you call it.
Yeah.
You know, not good, not good refereeing at all. You have to let that go. You have to let the play go, and then you tee him up.
Mm,
That's the way that's the way to do it. Um, Otherwise, you're giving an advantage to the team that's committing the infraction. But I wouldn't. But the rules. I thought the rules about stopping the game are pretty clear. You stop the game if there is a substantial head injury, and that's it.
mm.
And if someone goes down holding their ankle or their knee, you take away a fast break, and then he's on the court 3 minutes later.
Yeah, so let's go back into the third quarter. It's 45 39, 2 minutes into the third quarter. But Holland and Wright helped the Gladiators to a 10-0 run, a 16-point lead. It was never in single figures after that.
No, and ultimately Manchester guards just didn't do what they needed to do.
Mm,
If you shoot 8 of 35, you're three and poor guards. They got the ball in their hands a lot, and they didn't make the plays they needed to make. They were just very flat. And as I say, Matthew Ragsdale was able to score the ball at will. He had 26 points in 24 minutes, put up 14 threes. You know, the biggest thing when he's on the basketball court is that you take him off the 3-point line. You
mm,
have to. He's too good. And he shot 6 of 14 from three, which is about 44%, which is
mm,
probably what he's going to shoot for the season. So they can't complain.
mm,
You know, it wasn't an outlying situation. It's just that if you let a guy like that get that many shots up, he's going to make some. So yeah, we'll see. If it might just be one of those kind of days for Manchester, rookie days, youngish team, lots of 4.5 hour travel, 5 hour travel up there. Just just weren't ready for the game. But Caledonia seemed to be styling it out with the same group of players.
mm,
So obviously that might give them benefits in the short term with that togetherness. Um, I'm still a little bit concerned about the defense, but they just held someone at 62, so I
mm.
probably should shut up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've given Ragsdale's numbers, but they bear repeating. 26 points, 6 of 14 3. Holland, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 6 turnovers. Wright, 14 points, 7 assists. So Ragsdale, 6 of 14 from 3. The rest of the team, 1 for 11 from 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's not how many shooters who's
Yeah,
shooting them.
yeah, yeah. Cleary, 13.6 rebounds. Osborne, 12.6 rebounds. They were 25 of 70 from the floor, 4 of 25 from three, and 8 of 16 from free throws. That's
How
not
many
very
has
good.
assisted Osborne have? Let's say.
I didn't write it down.
All right, but not many, not nine.
Not no, no.
That's a big game. That's a big thing. Because the guards really don't pass the ball to each other that much. It's generally going into Osborne, and he's the one who's distributing.
Mm,
So they do rely on him to kind of get them open shots. Either that or it's all off the dribble. And off the dribble on the road after a long road trip isn't great.
mm. London Lions 82, Leicester Riders 70. Acott out for Leicester. Jonathan Williams not playing for London. Carey with a couple of open threes. Leicester led 10-2, but that was short-lived. A 15-2 run had London 21-15 ahead.
But outside of McGusty, London basically started their normal second unit, albeit Adamu's been running the point, to be fair.
Mm,
And the first 3 or 4 minutes, the first possession, like Dean Williams airballed a three. Next possession, Dean Williams turned the ball over. The next possession, um, they didn't get a good look. And they're coming up against a confident team who were playing with a bit of pace and as you say, made some shots. And for a short period of time, you thought, actually, yeah, this is going to be a game. And then you look at who's on the London bench and the way
mm,
that London are able to, it's the first game this season that Joel Scott's come off the bench.
mm,
They're able to bring Tariq Phillip into the game, Aaron Rye, league MVP, remember,
mm,
into the game off the bench, and just wear you down. And more Soloade, who was, who was exceptional in this game, and basically what you saw was a difference. The game is summed up by Soloade and Battle,
mm,
basically. Soloade, 6'5", plays defense, stands there, catches the ball, knocks down I think four shots, which were semi-open.
mm,
Wasn't you? If you're Leicester, you're not crazy, you're not really upset that he's shooting those shots because he can make them. Sometimes he doesn't, but he just stood there, minimum of first 4 shots, 12 points. In the meantime, he is guarding Battle, and suddenly Battle for the first time in his pro career is coming up against a guy who's 6'5", 6'6", and is guarding as
mm.
opposed to a guy who's 6'2" or 6'3", like for instance Polite was in with the shots we talked about last week
Yeah.
in Guildford, and Polite was just standing there and Battle can rise up and shoot it. Well, London weren't going to give him that, so it became harder for him, um, and that's just the length of even Adamu. He's a good 6'4", solid 6'4" as well. So they've got length all over defensively. Um, and they kind of wore Leicester down defensively. I thought I didn't think after the second quarter that London really got out of second gear.
Mm,
And to be honest, you look at the stats at the end and talk about Leicester in a minute. No London player played more than 22 minutes.
mm,
Two of them played more than 20 minutes.
mm,
I mean, literally, it was, if you could have drawn up a minute spread to kind of keep everybody fresh and everybody in rhythm, that's what you would have drawn up.
mm,
I think maybe Sandy had 10, then Goodwin had 14, everybody else is between 15 and 18, apart from the two guys who played 22. And it's like, Leicester have got obviously less players who are capable at that level, which means that those guys are playing 30 minutes and 32
mm,
minutes and 33 minutes. And the difference between someone who plays 22 and someone who plays 25 isn't great. The difference between someone who plays 30 and someone who plays 33 isn't great because you're as tired as each other, basically.
mm,
We space the minutes. But the difference between playing 20 and playing 33,
mm.
when the 20-minute player is Cameron McGusty or Joel Scott or someone like that, or Aaron
Yeah.
Wright, and when the team is comfortable in its own skin, which is what London are now. They weren't at the beginning of the season. They were figuring each other out. They are now comfortable in their own skin. It's real death march stuff, I'm afraid,
Mm,
because
mm,
you could argue that okay, Leicester had won two one-shot games, had blown Newcastle out before that, but they're still coming in winning three in a row against decent teams.
mm,
Everybody's a decent team. They won three in a row. So London coming off a game on Wednesday or Thursday night against Turk Telecom where they
mm,
played hard, got beat by about 12. So you kind of think, well, if there's a game which is ripe for maybe somebody in the SLB having a good shot at these guys, this is it.
mm,
Um, and probably missing Acott doesn't help. Basically you've got Menzies or Sulaiman at the five. I mean, that's
mm,
tough. Sulaiman isn't a five at all. And obviously missing Martin as well, so they're not fully done. But I thought Leicester kind of not degenerated, but they became very Carey centric in this game. I thought he pressed a little bit more than probably Rob would want. Evie was probably more impactful in relation to more productive and more efficient. But the ball's in Carey's hands a lot, and sometimes you were getting offensive, and Carey doesn't stop, but sometimes you turn the ball over, and live ball turnovers against London are just death,
yeah.
you know.
No.
So it kind of got out, and once it got out, I think Leicester had a little run at one point to get it down to 10 or 12,
Mm.
but it's
So,
it,
second quarter, Williams was causing them problems. It got out to 36-23. Somehow Leicester got it to single figures when Carey hit a three on the buzzer. It was from 51-41. Leicester didn't score for the next 5 minutes and were 22 points down, and that was
yeah,
basically it.
Williams dunked it from the wing, didn't he? I mean,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
another guy. If we can get into the non-existent GB
yeah,
program,
yeah.
it would improve us. He's really he should be. He's got a high pedigree. He comes out of German BBL,
Mm,
but he's really kind of fitted in, and more importantly, Sabonis clearly likes him, and Sabonis knows what he's looking at.
mm,
So you look at London, and you look at Price and Adamo getting reps at the point guard, and Williams and Rye, and you're thinking and even Solowade, if he was motivated to be in part of the group, they're all potentially people who could help us, and they're in this country,
mm.
but we haven't got a team to play them in because no one's resigned yet.
If we had a
Um,
team, yes.
exactly. So yeah, they were just I thought they played the game at a high level without playing well. That sounds really weird, but
Mm,
they didn't make as many shots as they could. Scott was what, 3 of 9 and missed a
mm,
couple of bunnies that he would never normally miss. Um, but they were just able to pick up their defense and maintain their system and get whatever shots that they needed to, and it wasn't really close.
no, it wasn't. It's
Kind of that kind of is pretty foreboding for everybody else because Leicester are a pretty solid SLB team, even missing a couple of guys.
Williams, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 of 8 shooting. McGusty, 12 points. Solowadi, 4 of 5 from 3 for 12 points. Carey, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Battle 13, Evie 11, 19 turnovers, 20 London points from them.
Yeah, just yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. It kind of obviously they're looking to compete in Euro Cup, so they have to have as solid a group as they can, as many players at a certain level as they can. But they got a guy like Randall who they brought in as an injury replacement, who's basically a bit part player,
Mm,
and he's coming out of EuroLeague programs, you know. So it may be that whilst the rules have been put in to try to level the playing field a little bit, it needs to be a little bit more level yet. And just on that rules thing, I'm still a bigger fan of the fact that, I know they did it with imports, but my view is that you should have luxury tax. And if a
mm,
team is able to pay 1.2 million for a team or whatever that they're putting out there, then there should be a minimal distribution to all the other teams if how far you're over the limit.
mm,
If the limit's a million and your team's 1.2 mil, then you 50% of that goes to the other clubs. That'd be 10 grand each. Makes a
mm,
difference.
mm,
Because ultimately the money that they spend, that's the money they're spending on bringing Randall in for 3 months,
mm,
ish. So I think no one wants, everybody wants to make kind of cosmetic changes around the sides, but ultimately, if you're serious about competitive balance, you don't restrict the players that London can sign because you want them to compete, but you do a better job of sharing the wealth of that around the league.
mm.
That's never going to happen because it doesn't happen in Europe. So,
No, no.
that's a wish list. Um, that then helps level up the rest of the group as well. But it's not going to happen. So we're just going to have to keep watching them and admiring them and thinking this is a pretty solid basketball team.
Mm. We've probably played enough games to look at the table now,
Yeah.
I reckon. And Lions miles clear at the top, 7 and 0. Second place is Bristol, 5 and 3. Cheshire 5 and 4. Sheffield 4 and 4. Manchester 3 and 3. Leicester 3 and 5. Surrey 2 and 3. And they're so far behind already on games played.
Yeah.
Newcastle 2 and 5, and Caledonia now 2 and 6.
So basically about three losses covering everybody from second and ninth.
Yeah.
It's a crapshoot.
It's second to eighth. It's only,
Two losses. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
so we're still in kind of shot variance this stuff, aren't we, in
yeah,
relation to the
yeah.
close games that we've had. But, I think 8 out of 9 qualify for the playoffs, so there's plenty of time for someone to be cast adrift. I mean, it's not great, in that. But and I still come back to this, we wouldn't have this time last year we wouldn't have started the league yet.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's a big difference in the season. It's a big difference in the season. I know, and they've reduced 6 games from everybody, and I get that, or 4 games from the southern teams, and they did need to reduce some games, um, because of some of the schedules. But we're still having quiet weekends,
Mm,
and I'm still a big fan of playing the trophy early and letting teams figure themselves out, and then making sure that everybody's at their best. Everybody's made their decisions before we start the league.
mm.
I really am. And you still have a trophy to play for, and if you're good at the beginning, you get the reward for that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but I think it favours, yeah, it makes it. We don't have pre-seasons in this country. It's a
mm,
problem. I mean, people say they have a pre-season. They're coming for 3 weeks. There's no one to play.
mm,
You can't play. There's nobody in the lower league to play. You can maybe get, if you've got a little bit of money, maybe you can go to Belgium or somewhere like that. Um, we had Kapulis and Stute will come back from Eurobasket like what, the 5th of September, something like that. First
mm,
game is like the 19th or something like that. That's not a pre-season, you know. And I think the level of the quality of the, it doesn't mean you're going to be on. I mean, Bristol started really well, so Andreas done
mm,
it well. Mark not so well. Albeit Newcastle won the first 2 games after that.
mm,
Um, but I still think there needs to be. I'm a great fan of the primacy of the league, and I know nobody else is. None of the clubs seem to be bothered
mm,
anymore London didn't celebrate winning it last year. Everybody looks at different things. But I think if you want to find the best team in the league, then you give everybody a proper chance to sort themselves out on the trophy. Personal opinion, nothing
Yeah,
more.
yeah. It's a bit Aaron Raiden thinking that, just silo the trophy off. We could have done with him yesterday. 3 games tipping off at the same time. Could have done with a bit
Yeah,
of that.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure if Aaron's watching this from somewhere in California,
Mm,
drinking his mojito,
mm,
sitting on the beach,
mm.
or New York, or wherever he is. But
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I think there's because the one thing they're talking about is, oh, what happened? Did that go?
No, you're still there. I can still
All
see
right,
you.
no, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing everybody's saying is, well, we need more coherence in the structure and all this stuff. And it's like we're just going to have an incoherent structure anyway because we're going to have trophy games and cup games in the middle of the league season.
Mm.
So my view is always get the trophy over, and then it becomes easy. But there we go. We move on.
We move on indeed. And I think we've got trophy games next weekend, haven't we? Isn't it? Doesn't it
Uh,
start next weekend? I think it
that
does.
might be right.
Yeah.
I think the
So
Caledonia Newcastle one has been put off until December. I may be wrong.
So yes, that game's moved, and I'm sure of it. I definitely saw a game involving Newcastle being moved to December.
Yeah.
So
So Championship, Caledonia, Sheffield on the 7th, Manchester, Sheffield, Cheshire in the trophy on the 7th.
and Cheshire Leicester, I think I'm doing next Sunday.
Right.
And
Okay.
I'm
Well,
pretty sure a trophy game.
yeah. So so you're getting that same incoherence, aren't you, really?
Mm,
People are going to complain. So there's not many games, actually. Not many games at all. Caledonia, Sheffield, Manchester, Cheshire, Surrey, Bristol, Cheshire, Leicester.
mm,
No game for London. No game for Newcastle.
mm,
And that's it.
mm.
So yeah, not great, but
Mm.
we're still going
We're
without a
still
license.
going. Uh,
Unlicensed.
so
Yeah. Yeah, three penalty
unlicensed.
points. No
Yeah,
insurance, no license. Six penalty
yeah,
points, no insurance.
yeah.
Soon to be
Uh,
totted up. Soon
and
to be
no
disqualified.
national team either.
No national team, no meaningful governing body, no responsibility, no accountability.
Mm.
Apart from that, everything's great.
Everything's grand. So, on the excitement of Dave reading out the fixtures from the
Yeah.
internet, we've peaked for this week.
We're feeling now, aren't we? Desperate. We're in the filler season now. It's October.
Yeah,
Nothing's happening much, so we just got to drag it out a bit.
yeah. Let's see if anything exciting happens over the next 7 days, and then Dave and I will have something to fill it with next
Yeah.
weekend. But
Absolutely.
until that point, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.